Hi, if you're a student looking for a place to stay in Melbourne, here are my thoughts on accommodation options in Melbourne. This is a bit of a freestyle script, so excuse me if I'm being a bit informal. I've been living in Melbourne as a uni student for about 2 years now, and I've seen and researched all sorts of accommodation options. So I hope whatever I have to say might help in your decision on where you decide to live in Melbourne. Bear in mind though, these are all my opinions and some hearsay, like stories I've heard from friends and mutuals. I encourage you to carry out your own research to really satisfy your living needs. It does take time, but honestly there's no shortcut. So it takes work, but I promise it's worth it. Anyways, please enjoy this video game footage that I collected as I yap. For dorms, if your uni has built-in dorms, I would say the best part about it would just be the location, because you'd be living on campus, so you wouldn't have to worry about like travel and the cost of travel. I don't know how much cheaper they are for in terms of rent. Like if you were to get a dorm rather than an accommodation, it's honestly up to the university. But if it's less than like 300 a week, I would say it's and if you like, or I guess a better way to put it, tolerate the living conditions they offer, I think it's a pretty good deal. It's not easy finding a place in Melbourne for under $300, especially if your campus is in the city. That being said, the worst thing I've heard about someone living in a dorm is that they have a shared bathroom facility, and they once found a huge, used, bloated, and bloody tampon in a toilet that was also covered in blood. So, yeah. You know, gross, but like kind of tame on the dorm grossness scale. So, pick your battles, I suppose. Renting or buying an apartment. I would recommend this if you have a lot of money, so maybe ask your parents. You probably need to talk about this with them. Renting in the city is gonna be like at least 400. You're gonna be lucky if you find anything less than that, but on top of that you have to pay for utilities like water, gas, and electric, and Wi-Fi. So if you have the means to, and you do plan to stay in Melbourne to work after you graduate, investing in buying an apartment might be a good idea. The convenience and comfort are things that I wish I could have if I had my own apartment. It's easier to host gatherings, being in charge of your own space, and the comfort of privacy and not really worried about bothering neighbors. It's really nice, but it's also a really expensive option. And I'm pretty sure most of you who are watching are probably like, 17 to 20 years old, with like maybe negative $5 in your bank account. So like I said, it's a really good option, but only if you have the money to buy and own your own apartment and have concrete plans on staying in Melbourne. If you do have the means to buy or rent an apartment, getting one in the CBD area, like the city area, will be pretty difficult because it's limited and it's also like super expensive. You could probably find a place outside of the city in the nearby suburbs like Fitzroy, Richmond, South Yarra, Docklands, but those are priced, I think, pretty similarly and kind of defeats the purpose of the convenience if the location is not really walking distance from your campus or any nearby supermarkets or pharmacies, etc. But if you do find an apartment that you like and you are able to buy it, one good thing about it is that you can rent it out to a roommate and make some small income on your own, and the only thing you'd have to pay to the apartment would be just your utilities. So yeah, that's all I have to say. Discuss this with people in your lives who can give you the money if you really are keen on continuing living in Melbourne, because this is a really expensive option. So really think about it. The homestay option. If you don't know what a homestay is, it's basically you're living in someone's house, and it's usually a family while they're living there. They'll let you have a private room and access to whatever facilities they have in the house, like their bathroom, kitchen, whatever. I don't know anyone in Melbourne who has done that. I can't say much about the companies or services who run things like that, but when I was doing my research, I remember that they were slightly cheaper than accommodations, and it may help if you fear homesickness or being alone. My cousin was doing a homestay, but in the US before she found her apartment. She didn't really have much issues with it, but it was more like living with roommates you don't really interact with. So you also have to consider the families you might be staying with in a homestay, but I don't think you get to control or pick that. This is not like adoption agency or whatever. You just get sent to whichever house that is kind of near to where you decide to go to uni. Actually, that might not even be the case at all. What I remember, most homestays, they're not really located in the city because it's really hard to find like a place in the city to begin with, so most homestays would probably be out in the suburbs or something. So if your uni campus just so happens to be out in the suburbs, like I don't know, maybe Deakin, or I can't remember the name of the other one, it starts with M. Yeah, if you're going to one of those unis and then a homestay might be a good option for you. I'm just saying. If If the homestay option sounds interesting, please give it more research because I can't really say anymore. I did my research a long while ago, so I'm just going off with what I remember. Scapes. Scape is a student accommodation company, and there's like, I want to say like 1 billion scapes in Melbourne. I'm joking, there's like 12. Each of them varying in their own prices and facilities and quality. They all have like facilities like gyms and study areas, cinema rooms, etc. And some scapes offer more facilities than others. Like I think it's Scape Franklin that has like a couple like music rooms with like I think maybe a drum kit and a piano, and it's completely soundproof. So if you're interested in music as a hobby, or if that's what you're studying, that's kind of useful for you. I think it's Scape Victoria as well that also has all-inclusive meals, so you don't have to cook because there's like literal cooks that will cook for you. Obviously that's added into like your rent, but I guess if you do the math, it technically would be cheaper and it saves you a bit more time than if you just didn't go for that and you just bought all your groceries and cooked all your own food. From what I remember, most scapes are priced like greater than $350, with the ones in the 300 range usually being a roommate situation rather than a private room situation. But from what I remember, since last year and this year, they've increased the prices for all of that stuff. So even with a shared room, I think it's like above 300 now. And if you want a private room, like just a standard room, it's like nearly 450 plus. So it's kind of a ripoff, but like if you add on the access to facilities they give you, it kind of almost balances out the price. But yeah, that's just how student accommodations work. It's pretty hard to find something cheaper than that. Life hack, if you have a partner and you both want to live together in Melbourne, I think it's Scape Aurora. They have like a room that's maybe $700 to $800 a month. It's a huge room, and it's a really nice location, but it's like only one bed and like one bathroom, I think. So I think those rooms are for couples. So like if you have a partner and you want to live together, then that might be a good option, because then you could just split the rent like $350 to $400, and you get the same facilities as everyone else, but your space would be bigger. Albeit you'll be living with a person very intimately, but that's your partner. So I can't stop yapping. Whoa. Okay, next up is Yugo. Yugo is similar to Scape, but they just have less openings. I think there's like only 2 Yugos in near the Melbourne CBD area. They also have study areas and cinema rooms, gyms, and breakout areas. Yugo is just a little bit smaller than the Scapes. The rooms are slightly cheaper, I think. Honestly, in this economy, it could be about the same price as Escape by now. But they also have the same issue being like cheaper rooms are usually for a roommate situation, and if you want to have a private room, you have to pay a bit more. I used to live really near to a Yugo in my old accommodation, and my friend also used to live there, so I would go there to hang out with her and vice versa. I went there super often because my accommodation did not have free Wi-Fi. And so whenever I needed to work, I would literally just go to the Yugo, call my friend, ask her to let me in, and let me just like do my work in one of the breakout areas or the lounge, because it was a lot closer than going all the way to campus. It was literally like my private internet cafe. The best part about Yugo, which I'm not sure if they still have this because it's been like a year, is that they had this donation pile where students could donate items they didn't want or didn't need anymore, and the accommodation would just donate those items to like a charity drive or a Salvation Army or something. They didn't really have like a strict schedule on when they would like donate stuff, so keep that in mind. I think they would just donate it when the piles were like super big. There's no rule on taking things away from the pile, and they were going to be donated anyway, so I got a lot of things from that pile, from like clothes to jackets to food. Just to be clear, I didn't take like a crap ton of things for myself or anything. I just took what I needed. Like, for example, I took this huge, big, brown puffer jacket, and I used it for months because I didn't have a thick enough jacket for the winter season, and I just put it back in the donation pile again when I was done with it, because low-key, it's not a really nice jacket. It just kept me super warm. I literally look like that one girl in that meme where she's in like her CE class with a big-ass puffer jacket. Yeah, I think the best item that I saw someone take was a perfectly good pair of boots, and my friend saw them, and she, it's first come first serve, respect. It's literally like the thrift. These shoes, they were like almost like Doc Marten dupes, and they were really nice black boots, and then she just like and it was her size. So she took them. So good for her. I wish I found those boots first, man. But like, you know, that life. The craziest time was when, like, around the end of the year, when people were leaving because they were going back home for the break, and everyone just had to get rid of all their stuff. So there was so much crap all over the floor. The donation pile is not like a little mini room or something. It's literally like an area set in the lounge. So I remember it was nighttime and my friends called me. He's like, hey, do you want to come into the lounge right now? And I was like, what? Why? She was like, just come over. So I came over, and lo and behold, I'm not joking, the room was maybe like, crap, I don't know, let's say like 7 by 8 meters. It might be a bit bigger than that. I'm kind of just eyeballing it from my memory. The whole floor was full of just so much crap that everyone donated. It was like clothes to plates to books to clothes hangers to like electronic devices they didn't need anymore, kitchenware, pots, pans, bathroom stuff, so much stuff all over the damn floor. Hold on, let me change my emote. There we go. So much stuff. Literally, it was difficult to walk because it was like I'm not joking, a sea of things. I think from that pile, honestly, from that pile, I didn't even grab that much because I was gonna be leaving the country as well soon. So I just grabbed like maybe some shirts I liked and like a couple of clothes hangers. It was crazy. I don't know if they still have that because obviously that's so much stuff. I'm pretty sure Yugo probably added maybe a couple more rules to adjust the amount of things people donate. But I don't know, who's to say? It's not like I've been inside Yugo for like the last year. Igloo. Igloo is another student accommodation company. I think there's like only one opening, like one building for it. And it's near Queen Victoria Market. So if you are a fan of shopping locally and farmers markets, that might be a nice option for you. I want to say this is literally the most bougie student accommodation I've ever been into. It's low-key kind of like a hotel. Like, that's what it looks like. And therefore, it's also one of the most expensive. Like, I'm not joking. I had a friend who used to live in an igloo, and she was in a 6-bedroom room, and that was like almost $400 plus a week, like over $400 just to live with 6 roommates. Oh my god. When I went inside for the first time, my jaw dropped, man. It was crazy. It's a really pretty place, but it's super expensive. So if you're an international student but like from the UK or the US or something, you'll be fine. Low-key, like, I'm not even low-key, high-key, literally you'll be fine. That is, for you, it will not be like the amount that I would pay if I were to move into an igloo. So yeah. Uni Lodge. I don't know too many people personally who live in a uni lodge, but from what I've heard, it does seem a bit sketchy. Take that with a grain of salt. Like, I've also heard that it's just like completely fine. There's like people with like 0 issues with with the uni lodge they're living in. The only reason why I think it's a little bit sketchy is because like on the website, for 2 completely different accommodation buildings, they use the exact same pictures, and the pictures don't look super updated. To put it nicely, it looks very honest, if you catch my drift. I will say though, I was very willing to apply to like a bunch of these uni lodges because they were very affordable, with rates going from like maybe from 200 onwards, which is not that common, and that's pretty good, honestly. Most of them are still priced at around 300 and up, but like if you look more, I think it's Uni Lodge Victoria. They have like, they're the ones with like under $300, but that's also because it's near Victoria University. I don't know if that's right, so it's a bit further away from city campus, so you know, pick your battles. Apart from all of that, that's just my speculation. I've not heard anything super crazy about a uni lodge, so take my word with a grain of salt, honestly. And finally, this is one that not too many people have heard of from when I've talked to people, but it's called Student Housing Australia, SHA for short. This is the accommodation I stayed at in my first year in Melbourne. The pros of this company is that it has relatively cheaper rent than most other student accommodations I've seen. Like where I stayed, I paid like $350 a week, and I got a fairly big private room with a bed, bathroom, and kitchen, which is better than like Scape or Yugo, because you get like a room that's basically like a slightly bigger hallway. But frankly, with the prices I was paying, I might as well have just stayed at Escape, because like I paid $350 a week, but that's not inclusive rent, so I still had to pay for like water and electricity, And on top of that, like I said earlier, my place didn't have Wi-Fi, so I lived off data and going to my friend's accommodation to steal her Wi-Fi. So adding like my electric bill and my water bill on top of the weekly rent, that would have just made it like already over $400. So at that point I might as well have just been staying at Escape, because at least, sure, Escape is a smaller room but at least it's inclusive rent, and I would have access to all of those facilities. The only good thing that came out of paying like that extra bit of money rather than just paying that to Escape is that I had a larger room in comparison to my friends, which was much more comfortable, and my bed was like bigger, which was pretty nice. SHA is the only accommodation company that I've seen that feels more like an actual renting company. Like if you went to realestate.com, you would see like SHA property there, but you wouldn't see like Scape or Yugo property, I think. If there was an issue with the building, I would have to call or email multiple times to like my building manager to like find a solution. There wasn't even a reception at my building, even though there is a reception table. Once the front door wasn't working, and I didn't know where the back door of the building was, so I was basically locked out, and I had to stay at my friend's place and try again later that night, hoping the lock was fixed. It was, but actually no, it wasn't. It just so happened that someone who lived in the building just was like, oh, I'll show you where the back room is, the back door, and I just followed them. Okay, talking like that in hindsight, that low-key kind of sounds pretty dangerous. I'm glad I wasn't murdered. Another issue I had was that for a couple months, the hot water in the building wasn't really working for certain times in the day. So I had to like shower earlier in the day than usual, or just hope that on the times when I did shower, it wasn't cold water that was coming out. I'd like map out times when I had to shower, so that way I wouldn't be so uncomfortable, or I wouldn't be just drenched in cold water. This was especially bad during winter. Yeah, this happened during winter. I was freezing my ass off and I couldn't even get like regular hot water. I was dying. Yeah. I think that's all I have to say. I think, yeah. I'm not trying to bash SHA, because like this is just only one of the many rental properties that they have. Like, I'm just speaking for the one I lived in. So who's to say, maybe some people have lived in SHA's like rooms or other like properties and they have like zero problems. It could have just so happened to be my building. But yeah. And honestly, that's all I have for... Oh wait, no, not yet. From what I remember, SHA, most of their properties are not inclusive rent. So even if you did find a place that was maybe like under 400, let's say 350 and below, you still have to be paying other utilities. So on the website they will like show what like utilities are included in your contract. So if I were you, I would make sure it includes free Wi-Fi. They probably say they do have Wi-Fi, but it's not free. Like for my accommodation at the time, I had to pay like $40 a month for Wi-Fi, which I didn't want to do. That's why I didn't pay for Wi-Fi, and therefore I didn't have Wi-Fi. I just used my data. I would suggest you get a place with free Wi-Fi, because it's much more useful, and it's really important that you have Wi-Fi so you can actually work from home and you don't have to, unless you live literally next door to campus. Yeah, okay. That's all I have to say about accommodations in Melbourne. I didn't go through every accommodation that's available in Melbourne. I just went through like the really common ones and the ones I'm more aware of. I hope this helps in your search for finding your home away from home. I have a couple other videos relating to studying in Melbourne, so if you're interested, go ahead and take a look. All the best.